on an exemplarized cubicle in the apartment immediately above the kitchen and immediately adjacent to the sleeping apartment of his host and hostess. What various advantages would or might have resulted from a prolongation of such an extemporization? For the guest, security of domicile and seclusion of study. For the host, rejuvenation of intelligence, vicarious satisfaction. For the hostess, disintegration of obsession, acquisition of correct Italian pronunciation. Why might these several provisional contingencies between a guest and a hostess not necessarily preclude or be precluded by a permanent eventuality of reconciliatory union between a schoolfellow and a Jew's daughter? Because the way to daughter led through mother, the way to mother through daughter. To what inconsequent polysyllabic question of his host did the guest return a monosyllabic negative answer? If he had known the late Miss Emily Sinico, accidentally killed at Sydney Parade Railway Station, 14th of October, 1903, what inchoate corollary statement was consequently suppressed by the host? A statement explanatory of his absence on the occasion of the interment of Miss Mary Daedalus, born Golding, 26th of June, 1903, vigil of the anniversary of the decease of Rudolph Bloom, born Virag. Was the proposal of asylum accepted? Promptly, inexplicably, with amicability, gratefully it was declined. What exchange of money took place between host and guest? The former returned to the latter, without interest, a sum of money, 1 to 7 to 0, £1, 7 shillings sterling, advanced by the latter to the former. What counter-proposals were alternatively advanced, accepted, modified, declined, restated in other terms, re-accepted, ratified, and reconfirmed? To inaugurate a prearranged course of Italian instruction, place the residence of the instructed. To inaugurate a course of vocal instruction, place the residence of the instructess. To inaugurate a series of static, semi-static, and peripatetic intellectual dialogues, places the residence of both speakers, if both speakers were resident in the same place. The Ship Hotel and Tavern, 6th Lower Abbey Street, West and East Connery proprietors. The National Library of Ireland, 10 Kildare Street, the National Maternity Hospital, 29th, 30th, 31st Hollis Street. A public garden, the vicinity of a place of worship, a conjunction of 2 or more public thoroughfares, the pointed bisection of a right line drawn between their residences. If both speakers were resident in different places. What rendered problematic for Bloom the realization of these mutual self-excluding propositions? The irreparability of the past, once at a performance of Albert Hengler's circus in the Rotunda, Rutland Square, Dublin, an intuitive party-colored clown in quest of a paternity had penetrated from the ring to a place in the auditorium where Bloom, solitary, was seated, and had publicly declared to an exhilarated audience that he, Bloom, was his, the clown's, papa. The imprevedibility of the future, once of the summer of 1898, he, Bloom, had marked a florin, too, with 3 notches on the milled edge, and tendered it in payment of an account due and received by J. and T. Davy, family grocers, 1st Charlemont Hall, Grand Canal, for circulation on the waters of civic finance, for possible, circuitous or direct return. Was the clown Bloom's son? No. Had Bloom's coin returned? Never. Why would a recurrent frustration the more depress him? Because at the critical turning point of human existence he desired to amend many social conditions, the product of inequality and avarice and international animosity. He believed then that human life was infinitely perceptible, eliminating these conditions. There remained the generic conditions imposed by natural as distinct from human law, as integral parts of the human whole. The necessity of destruction to procure alimentary sustenance, the painful character of the ultimate functions of separate existence, the agonies of birth and death, the monotonous menstruation of simian and particularly human females extending from the age of puberty to the menopause, inevitable accidents at sea and mines and factories, certain very painful maladies and their resultant surgical operations, innate lunacy and congenital criminality, decimating epidemics, catastrophic cataclysms which make terror the basis of human mentality, seismic upheavals, the epicenters of which are located in densely populated regions, the fact of vital growth through convulsions of metamorphosis from infancy through maturity to decay. Why did he desist from speculation? Because it was a task for a superior intelligence to substitute other more acceptable phenomena in the place of less acceptable phenomena to be removed. Did Stephen participate in his dejection? He affirmed his significance as a conscious, rational animal proceeding syllogistically from the known to the unknown, and a conscious, rational reagent between a micro and a macrocosm, ineluctably constructed upon the incertitude of the void. Was this affirmation apprehended by Bloom? Not verbally, substantially. What comforted his misapprehension? That as a competent, keyless citizen he had proceeded energetically from the unknown to the known through the incertitude of the void. In what order of precedence, with what attendant ceremony was the exodus from the house of bondage to the wilderness of inhabitation effected? Lighted candle and stick borne by Bloom, diaconal hats on ash plant borne by Stephen. With what intonation secreto of what commemorative psalm? The 113th modus peregrinus in exitu Israel de Egyptio, domus Jacob de populo barbaro. What did each do at the door of egress? Bloom set the candlestick on the floor, Stephen put the hat on his head. For what creature was the door of egress a door of ingress? For a cat. What spectacle confronted them when they, first the host, then the guest, emerged silently, doubly dark from obscurity by a passage from the rear of the house into the penumbra of the garden? The heaven tree of stars hung with humid, night blue fruit. With what meditations did Bloom accompany his demonstration to his companion of various constellations? Meditations of evolution increasingly vaster, of the moon invisible and incipient lunation, approaching perigee, of the infinite, litigious, scintillating, uncondensed Milky Way, discernible by daylight by an observer placed at the lower end of a cylindrical vertical shaft 5,000 feet deep sunk from the surface towards the center of the earth, of Sirius, Alpha and Canis Major, 10 light years, 57 quadrillion miles distant, and in volume 900 times the dimension of our planet, of Arcturus, of the procession of equinoxes, of Orion with belt and sextuple, sun, theta, and nebula, in which 100 of our solar systems could be contained, of moribund, of a nascent new stars such as Nova in 1901, of our system plunging towards the constellation of Hercules, of the parallax and parallactic drift of so-called fixed stars, in reality ever-moving wanderers from immeasurably remote eons to infinitely remote futures, in comparison with which the years 70 of allotted human life formed a parenthesis of infinitesimal brevity. Were there obverse meditations of involution increasingly less vast? Of the aeons of geological periods recorded in the stratisfactions of the earth, of the myriad, minute, entomological, organic existences concealed in cavities of the earth, beneath removable stones, in hives and mounds, of microbes, germs, bacteria, bacilli, spermatozoa, and the incalculable trillions of billions of millions of imperceptible molecules contained by cohesion of molecular affinity in a single pinhead, of the universe of human serum constellated with red and white bodies, themselves universes of void space constellated with other bodies, each in continuity, in universe of divisible component bodies, of which each was again divisible in divisions of redivisible component bodies, dividends and divisors, ever diminishing without actual division, till, if the progress were carried far enough, not nowhere was never reached. Why did he not elaborate these calculations to a more precise result? Because some years previously in 1886, when occupied with the problem of the quadrature of the circle, he had learned of the existence of a number computed to a relative degree of accuracy to be of such magnitude, and of so many places, e.g., the ninth power of the ninth power of 9, that, the result having been obtained, 33 closely printed volumes of 1,000 pages, each of innumerable quires and realms of India paper, would have been requisitioned in order to contain the complete tale of its printed integers of units, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions, the nucleus of the nebula of every digit of every series containing succinctly the potentiality of being raised to the utmost kinetic elaboration of any power of any of its powers. Did he find the problems of the inhabitability of the planets and their satellites by a race, given in species, and of the possible social and moral redemption of said race by a redeemer, easier of solution? Of a different order of difficulty, conscious that of the human organism, normally capable of sustaining an atmospheric pressure of 19 tons, when elevated to a considerable altitude and the terrestrial atmosphere suffered with a rhythmical progression of intensity, according as the line of demarcation between troposphere and stratosphere was approximated from nasal hemorrhage, impeded respiration, and vertigo. When proposing this problem for solution, he had conjectured as a working hypothesis which could not be proved impossible that a more adaptable and differently anatomically structured race of beings might subsist otherwise under Martian, Mercurial, Veneral, Jovian, Saturnian, Neptunian, and Uranian, sufficient and equivalent conditions, though an apogean humanity of beings created in varying forms with finite differences resulting similar to the whole and to another world, probably there as here, remain inalterably and inalienably attached to vanities of vanities, and to all that is vanity. And the problem of possible redemption, the minor was proved by the major. Which various features of the constellations were in turn considered? The various colors significant of various degrees of vitality, white, yellow, crimson, vermilion, cinnabar, their degrees of brilliancy, their magnitudes, revealed up to and including the seventh, their positions, the Wagoner's star, Walsingham Way, the chariot of David, the annular cinctures of Saturn, the condensation of spiral nebulae into suns, the interdependent gyrations of double suns, the independent synchronous discoveries of Galileo, Simon Marius, Piazzi, Leverrier, Herschel, Gala, the systematizations attempted by Bode and Kepler of cubes of distances and squares of times of revolution, the most infinite compressibility of hirsute comets and their vast elliptical, egressive, and reentrant orbits from perihelion to aphelion, the sidereal origin of meteoric stones, the Libyan floods on Mars about the period of the birth of the younger astroscopist, the annual reoccurrence of meteoric showers about the period of the feast of St. Lawrence, martyr low August, the monthly recurrence known as the new moon with the old moon in her arms, the posited influence of celestial on human bodies, the appearance of a star, first magnitude, of exceeding brilliancy, dominating by night and day, a new luminous sun generated by the collision and amalgamation of incandescence of two non-luminous X-suns, about the period of the birth of William Shakespeare over Delta and the recumbent never-setting constellation of Cassiopeia, and of a star, second magnitude, of similar origin but of less brilliancy, which had appeared in and disappeared from the constellation of the Corona Septentrionalis, about the period of the birth of Leopold Bloom, and of other stars of, presumably, similar origin, which had effective or presumably appeared in and disappeared from the constellation of Andromeda, about the period of birth of Stephan Daedalus, and in and from the constellation of Auriga some years after the birth and death of Rudolf Bloom, Jr., and in and from other constellations some years before or after the birth or death of other persons. The attendant phenomena of eclipses, solar and lunar, from immersion to immersion, abatement of wind, transit of shadow, taciturnity of winged creatures, emergence of nocturnal or crepuscular animals, persistence of infernal light, obscurity of terrestrial waters, pallor of human beings. His, Bloom's, logical conclusion, having weighed the matter and allowing for possible error? That it was not a heaven tree, not a heaven grot, not a heaven beast, not a heaven man, that it was a utopia, where being no known method from the known to the unknown, an infinity renderably equally finite by the supposititious apposition of one or more bodies equally of the same and of different magnitudes, a mobility of illusory forms, immobilized in space, remobilized in air, a past which possibly had ceased to exist as a present before its probable spectators had entered actual present existence. Was he more convinced of the aesthetic value of the spectacle? Indubitably, in consequence of the reiterated examples of poets, in the delirium of the frenzy of attachment, or in the abasement of rejection, invoking ardent sympathetic constellations, or the frigidity of the satellite of their planet. Did he then accept as an article of belief the theory of astrological influences upon sublunary disasters? It seems to him possible of proof as a confutation and the nomenclature employed in its selenographical charts as attributable to verifiable intuition as to fallacious analogy. The lake of dreams, the sea of rains, the gulf of dews, the ocean of fecundity. What special affinities appeared to him to exist between the moon and woman? Her antiquity in preceding and surviving successive Tellurian generations, her nocturnal predominance, her satellitic dependence, her luminary reflection, her constancy under all her phases, rising and setting by her appointed times, waxing and waning, the forced invariability of her aspect, her indeterminate response to inaffirmative interrogation, her potency over effluent and refluent waters, her power to enamor, to mortify, to invest with beauty, to render insane, to incite to and aid delinquency, the tranquil inscrutability of her visage, the terribility of her isolated, dominant, implacable, resplendent propinquity, her almonds of tempest and of calm, the stimulation of her light, her motion and her presence, the admonition of her craters, her arid seas, her silence, her splendor when visible, her attraction when invisible. What visible luminous signs attracted Bloom's, who attracted Stephen's gaze? At the second story, Rere, of the Bloom's house, the light of the paraffin oil lamp with oblique shade projected on a screen of roller blinds supplied by Frank O'Hara, window blind, curtain pole, and revolving shutter manufacturer, 16th on Gare Street. How did he elucidate the mystery of an invisible attractive person, his wife Marion Molly Bloom, denoted by a visible splendid sign, a lamp? With indirect and direct verbal allusions or affirmations, with subdued affection and admiration, with description, with impediment, with suggestion. Both, then, were silent? Silent, each contemplating the other in both mirrors of the reciprocal flesh of their his, not his, fellow faces. Were they indefinitely inactive? At Stephen's suggestion, at Bloom's instigation, both, first Stephen, then Bloom, in penumbra urinated, their sides contiguous, their organs of micturition reciprocally rendered invisible by manual circumposition, their gazes, first Bloom's, then Stephen's, elevated to the projected luminous and semi-luminous shadow. Similarly, the projections of their, first sequent, then simultaneous urinations were dissimilar. Bloom's longer, less eruent, and the incomplete form of the bifurcated, penultimate alphabetical letter, who in his ultimate year at high school, 1880, had been capable of attaining the point of greatest altitude against the whole concurrent strength of the institution, 210 scholars. Stephen's higher, more sibilant, who in the ultimate hours of the previous day had augmented by diuretic consumption and insistent vesical pressure. What different problems presented themselves to each concerning the invisible, audible, collateral organ of the other? To Bloom, the problems of irritability, tumescence, rigidity, reactivity, dimension, sanitarianus, pelosity. To Stephen, the problem of the sacerdotal integrity of Jesus circumcised, January, holiday of obligation, to hear Mass and abstain from unnecessary servile work, and the problem as to whether the divine prepuce, the carnal bridal ring of the Holy Roman Catholic Apostolic Church, conserved in Calcutta, were deserving of simple hyperbole, or of the 4th degree of latria accorded to the abscission of such divine excrescences as hair and toenails. What celestial sign was by both simultaneously observed? A star, precipitated with great apparent velocity across the firmament from Vega and the Lyre, above the zenith beyond the star group of the Tress of Baranus towards the zodiacal sign of Leo. How did the centripetal remainer afford egress to the centrifugal departer? By inserting the barrel of an aruginated male key in the hole of an unstable female lock, obtaining a purchase on the bow of the key and turning its wards from right to left, withdrawing a bolt from its staple, pulling inward spasmodically an obsolescent unhinged door, and revealing an aperture for free egress and free ingress. How did they take leave, one of the other, in separation? Standing perpendicularly at the same door and on different sides of its base, the lines of the valedictory arms meeting at any point and forming any angle less than the sum of 2 right angles. What sound accompanied the union of their tangent, the disunion of their, respectfully, centrifugal and centripetal hands? The sound of the peal of the hour of the night by the chime of the bells in the church of St. George. What echoes of that sound were by both and each heard? By Stephen, Liliata rulantium, terma circumdet, lubulantium te virginum chorus excipiet. By Bloom, hi-ho, 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 hi-ho. Where were the several members of the company with which Bloom that day at the bidding of that peal had travelled from Sandymount in the south to Glasnevin in the north? Martin Cunningham, in bed. Jack Power, in bed. Simon Daedalus, in bed. Ned Lambert, in bed. Tom Kernan, in bed. Joe Hines, in bed. John Henry Morton, in bed. Bernard Corrigan, in bed. Patsy Dignam, in bed. Patty Dignam, in the grave. Alone, what did Bloom hear? The double reverberation of retreating feet on the heaven-born earth, the double vibration of a Jew's harp in the resonant lane. Alone, what did Bloom feel? The cold interstellar space, thousands of degrees below freezing point, or the absolute zero of Fahrenheit, centigrade, or Raymer? The incipient intimations of proximate dawn. Of what did bell chime and hand touch and footstep and lone chill remind him? Of companions now various in manners in different places, defunct, Percy Apjohn, killed in action, Modded River. Philip Gilligan, Phthisis, Jervis Street Hospital. Matthew F. Kane, accidental drowning, Dublin Bay. Philip Moisel, Pimia, Haighesbury Street. Michael Hart, Phthisis, Mater, Misericordiae Hospital. Patrick Dignam, apoplexy, Sandymount. What prospect of what phenomena inclined him to remain? The disparation of 3 final stars, the diffusion of daybreak, the apparition of a new solar disk. Had he ever been a spectator of these phenomena? Once in 1887, after a protracted performance of charades in the house of Luke Doyle, Kimmage, he had awaited with patience the apparition of the diurnal phenomena, seated on a wall, his gaze turned in the direction of Mizrach, the east. He remembered the initial of paraphenomena? More active air, a matutinal distant cock, ecclesiastical clocks at various points, divine music, the isolated tread of an early wayfarer, the visible diffusion of the light in an invisible luminous body, the first golden limb of the resurgent sun perceptible low on the horizon. Did he remain? With deep inspiration he remained, retraversing the garden, re-entering the passage, reclosing the door. With brief suspiration, he reassumed the candle, reascended the stairs, reapproached the door of the front room, hall floor, and re-entered. What suddenly arrested his ingress? The right temporal lobe of the hollow sphere of his cranium came into contact with a solid timber angle where, an infinitesimal but sensible fraction of a second later, a painful sensation was located in consequence of antecedent sensations transmitted and registered. Describe the alterations effected in the disposition of the articles of furniture. A sofa upholstered in prune plush had been translocated from opposite the door to the ingle side near the compactly furled Union Jack, an alteration which he had frequently intended to execute. The blue and white checker inlaid Majolica top table had been placed opposite the door in the place vacated by the prune plush sofa. The walnut sideboard, a projecting angle of which had momentarily arrested his ingress, had been moved from its position beside the door to a more advantageous but perilous position in front of the door. 2 chairs had been moved from right and left of the ingle side to the position originally occupied by the blue and white checker inlaid Majolica top table. Describe them. 1. A squat stuffed easy chair with stout arms extended and back slanted to the rear, which, repelled in recoil, had then upturned in a regular fringe of a rectangular rug, and now displayed on its amply upholstered seat a centralized diffusing and diminishing discoloration. The other, a slender sleigh-foot chair of glossy cane curves, placed directly opposite the former, its frame from top to seat and from seat to base being varnished dark brown, its seat being a bright circle of white plated rush. What significances attached to these 2 chairs? Significances of similitude, of posture, of symbolism, of circumstantial evidence, of testimonial supermanence. What occupied the position originally occupied by the sideboard? A vertical piano, Cadby, with exposed keyboard, its closed coffin supporting a pair of long yellow ladies' gloves, and an emerald ashtray containing 4 consumed matches, a partly consumed cigarette, and 2 discolored ends of cigarettes. Its music crest supporting the music in the key of G, natural for voice, and piano of Love's Old Sweet Song, words by G. Clifton Bingham, composed by J. L. Malloy, sung by Madame Antoinette Sterling. Open at the last page with the final indications ad libitum forte, pedal, animato, sustain pedal, ritirando. Close. With what sensations did Bloom contemplate in rotation with objects? With strain, elevating a candlestick, with pain, feeling on his right temple a contused tumescence. With attention, focusing his gaze on a large, dull passive and a slender, bright active. With solicitation, bending and downturning the upturned rug fringe. With amusement, remembering Dr. Malachi Mulligan's scheme of color containing the gradation of green. With pleasure, repeating the words in the antecedent act and perceiving through various channels of internal sensibility the consequent and concomitant tepid, pleasant diffusion of gradual discoloration. His next proceeding? From an open box on the Majolica top table, He extracted a black diminutive cone, 1 inch in height, placed on its circular base on a small tin plate, placed his candlestick on the right corner of the mantelpiece, produced from his waistcoat a folded page of prospectus, illustrated, entitled Agendathner Time, unfolded the same, examined it superficially, rolled it into a thin cylinder, ignited it on the candle flame, applied it when ignited to the apex of the cone, till the latter reached the stage of Rutland's. Placed the cylinder in the basin of the candlestick, disposing its unconsumed part in such a manner as to facilitate total combustion. And what followed this operation? The truncated conical crater summit of the diminutive volcano emitted a vertical and serpentine fume, redolent of aromatic oriental incense. What homothetic objects, other than the candlestick, stood on the mantelpiece? A timepiece of striated Connemara marble stopped at the hour of 4:46 a.m. on the 21st of March, 1896, matrimonial gift of Matthew Dillon. A dwarf tree of glacial arborescence under the transparent bell shade, matrimonial gift of Luke and Caroline Doyle. An embalmed owl, matrimonial gift of Alderman John Hooper. What interchanges of looks took place between these three objects in bloom? In the mirror of the gilt-bordered pier glass, the undecorated back of the dwarf tree regarded the upright back of the embalmed owl. Before the mirror, the matrimonial gift of Alderman John Hooper, with a clear melancholy, wise, bright, motionless, compassionate gaze, regarded Bloom, while Bloom, with obscure, tranquil, profound, motionless, compassionated gaze, regarded the matrimonial gift of Luke and Caroline Doyle. What composite asymmetrical image in the mirror then attracted his attention? The image of a solitary, ipso-relative, mutable, alio-relative man. Why solitary, ipso-relative? Brothers and sisters had he none, yet that man's father was his grandfather's son. Why mutable, alio-relative? From infancy to maturity he had resembled his maternal procreatrix. From maturity to senility he would increasingly resemble his paternal procreator. What final visual impression was communicated to him by the mirror? The optical reflection of several inverted volumes improperly arranged, and not in the order of their common letters, with scintillating titles on the two bookshelves opposite. Catalogue these books. Tom's Dublin Post Office Directory, 1886. Dennis Florence McCarthy's Poetical Works, Copper Beechleaf Bookmark at page 5. Shakespeare's Works, Dark Crimson, Morocco, Gold-tooled. The Useful Ready Reckoner, brown cloth. The Secret History of the Court of Charles II, red cloth, tooled binding. The Child's Guide, blue cloth. The Beauties of Killarney, wrappers. When We Were Boys by William O'Brien, M.P., green cloth, slightly faded, envelope bookmark at page 217. Thoughts from Spinoza, maroon leather. The Story of the Heavens by Sir Robert Ball, blue cloth. Ellie's 3 Trips to Madagascar, brown cloth, title obliterated. The Stark Munro Letters by A. Conan Doyle, property of the City of Dublin Public Library, 106 Capel Street, Lent, 21st of May. Whitsun Eve, 1904, due 4th of June, 1904, 13 days overdue, black cloth binding, bearing white letter-numbered ticket. Voyages in China by Viator, recovered with brown paper, red ink title. Philosophy of Talmud, soon pamphlet. Lockhart's Life of Napoleon, cover wanting, marginal annotations, minimizing victories, aggrandizing defeats of the protagonist. Soll und Haben by Gustav Freytag. Blackboards, Gothic characters, cigarette coupon bookmark at page 24. Hosier's History of the Russo-Turkish War, brown cloth, A volumes, with gummed labeled, Garrison Library, Governor's Parade, Gibraltar, on verso of cover. Lawrence Bloomfield in Ireland by William Allingham, second edition, green cloth, gilt trefoil design, previous owner's name on recto of flyleaf erased. A Handbook of Astronomy, cover, brown leather, detached S-plates, antique letterpress, long primer, author's footnotes, non-pareil, marginal clues breviaire, captions, small pica. The Hidden Life of Christ, blackboards. In the Track of the Sun, yellow cloth, title page missing, recurrent title, intestation. Physical Strength and How to Obtain It by Eugene Sandel, red cloth. Short but yet plain Elements of Geometry, written in French by F. Ignat Paradis, and rendered into English by John Harris, D.D., London. Printed for R. Knaplock at the Biffhop's Head, 1711, with dedicatory epiphal to his worthy friend Charles Cox, Esquire, Member of Parliament for the Burgh of Southwark, and having ink calligraphed statement on the flyleaf certifying that the book was the property of Michael Gallagher. dated this 10th of May, 1822, and requesting the person who should find it, if the book should go loft or go affray, to restore it to Michael Gallagher, carpenter, Dufree Gate, in Nifcordy, County Wicklow, the finest place in the world. What reflections occupied his mind during the process of reversion of the inverted volumes? The necessity of order, a place for everything and everything in its place. The deficient appreciation of literature possessed by females. The incongruity of an apple incuneated in a tumbler and of an umbrella inclined in a clothes stool. The insecurity of hiding any secret document behind, beneath, or between the pages of a book. Which volume was the largest in bulk? Hozier's History of the Russo-Turkish War. What among other data did the second volume of the work in question contain? The name of a decisive battle, forgotten, frequently remembered by a decisive officer, Major Brian Cooper Tweedy, remembered. Why, firstly and secondly, did he not consult the work in question? Firstly, in order to exercise mnemotechnic. Secondly, because after an interval of amnesia, when seated at the central table, about to consult the work in question, he remembered, by mnemotechnic, the name of the military engagement, Plevno. What caused him consolation in his sitting posture? The candor, nudity, pose, tranquility, youth, grace, sex counsel, of a statue erect in the center of the table, an image of Narcissus purchased by auction from P.A. Wren, 9th Bachelor's Walk. What caused him irritation in his sitting posture? Inhibitory pressure of collar, size 17, and waistcoat 5 buttons, 2 articles of clothing superfluous in the costume of mature males, and inelastic to alterations of mass by expansion. How was the irritation allayed? He removed his collar, with contained black necktie and collapsible stud, from his neck to a position on the left of the table. He unbuttoned successively in reverse direction waistcoat, trousers, shirt, and vest along the medial line of irregular, encrispated black hairs, extending in triangular convergence from the pelvic basin over the circumference of the abdomen, and umbilicular fossicle along the medial line of nodes to the intersection of the 6 pectoral vertebrae. Thence produced both ways at right angles and terminating in circles, described about 2 equidistant points, right and left, on the summits of the mammary prominences. He embraced successfully each of 6-1 braced trouser buttons, arranged in pairs, of which 1 incomplete. What involuntary actions followed? He compressed between 2 fingers the flesh circumjacent to the cicatrice, in the left infracostal region below the diaphragm, resulting from a sting inflicted 2 weeks and 3 days previously, 23rd of May, 1904, by a bee. He scratched imprecisely with his right hand, though insensible of prurition, various points and surfaces of his partly exposed, wholly abluted skin. He inserted his left hand into the left lower pocket of his waistcoat and extracted and replaced a silver coin, 1 shilling, placed there, presumably, on the occasion, 17th of October, 1903, of the interment of Miss Emily Sinico's Sydney Parade. Compile the budget for 16th of June, 1904. Debit, LSD 1 port kidney, 0031 copy Freeman's Journal, 0011 bath and gratification, 016 tram fare, 0011 in memoriam Patrick Dignam, 0502 Banbury cakes, 0011 lunch, 0071 renewal fee for book, 0101 packet notepaper and envelopes, 0021 dinner and gratification, 0201 postal order and stamp, 028 tram fare, 0011 pig's foot, 0041 sheep's trotter, 0031 cake, fries, plain chocolate, 0011 square soda bread, 0041 coffee and bun, 004 loan Stephen Daedalus refunded, 170 balance, 0175 2193. Credit LSD cash in hand, 049 commission received Freeman's Journal, 176 loan Stephen Daedalus, 1702193. Did the process of divestiture continue? Sensible of the benignant persistent ache in his foot soles, he extended his foot to one side and observed the creases, protuberances, and salient points caused by foot pressure in the course of walking repeatedly in several different directions. Then, inclined, he disnoted the lace notes, unhooked and loosened the laces, took off each of his 2 boots for the second time, detached the partially moistened right sock through the forepart of the nail of his great toe, and again effracted, raised his right foot, and having unhooked a purple elastic sock suspender, took off his right sock, placed his unclothed right foot on the margin of the seat of his chair, picked at and gently lacerated the protruding part of the great toenail, raised the part lacerated to his nostrils, and inhaled the odor of the quick, then with satisfaction threw away the lacerated ungual fragment. Why with satisfaction? Because the odor inhaled corresponded to other odors inhaled by other ungual fragments, picked and lacerated by Master Bloom, pupil of Miss Ellis's juvenile school, patiently each night in the act of brief genuflection and nocturnal prayer and ambitious meditation. And what ultimate ambition had all concurrent and consecutive ambitions now coalesced? Not to inherit by right of primogeniture, gavelkind or borough English, or perpess in perpetuity, an extensive domain of a sufficient number of acres, roods, and perches, statute land, measure, valuation 42 pounds, of grazing turberary surrounding a baronial hall, with gate lodge and carriage door, nor, on the other hand, a terrace house or a semi-detached villa described as rus in urbe or quisi sana, but to purchase by private treaty in fee simple a thatched bungalow-shaped two-story dwelling house of southerly aspect, surmounted by vane and lightning conductor, connected with the earth, with porch covered by parasitic plants, ivy or Virginia creeper, hall door, olive green, with smart carriage finish and neat door brasses, stucco front with gilt tracery at eaves and gable, rising, if possible, upon a gentle eminence with agreeable prospect from balcony with stone pillar parapet over unoccupied and unoccupiable interjacent pastures, and standing in 5 or 6 acres of its own ground, at such a distance from the nearest public thoroughfare as to render its house lights visible at night above and through a quick-set hornbeam hedge of topiary cutting, situate at a given point not less than 1 statute mile from the periphery of the metropolis, within a time limit of not more than 15 minutes from tram or train line, e.g. Dundrum, south, or Sutton, north, both localities equally reported by trial to resemble the terrestrial poles in being favorable climates for physical objects. The premises to be held under fee-farm grant, lease 999 years, the messuage to consist of 1 drawing room with bay window, 2 lancets, thermometer affixed, 1 sitting room, 4 bedrooms, 2 servants' rooms, tiled kitchen with close range and scullery, lounge hall fitted with linen wall presses, fumed oak sectional bookcases containing the Encyclopedia Britannica and New Century Dictionary, transverse obsolete medieval and oriental weapons, dinner gong, alabaster lamp, bowl pendant, vulcanite automatic telephone receiver with adjacent directory, hand-tufted Axminster carpet with cream ground and trellis border, loo table with pillar and claw legs, heart with massive fire brasses, and ormolu mantle chronometer clock, guaranteed timekeeper with cathedral chime, barometer with hydrographic chart, comfortable lounge settees and corner fitments, upholstered in ruby plush with good springing and sunk center, 3 banner Japanese screen and cuspidors, club-styled, rich wine-colored leather, gloss renewable with a minimum of labor by use of linseed oil and vinegar, and pyramidically prismatic central chandelier luster, bentwood perch with finger-tame parrot, expurgated language, embossed mural paper at 10 per dozen, with transverse swags of carmine floral design and top-crown frieze, staircase, 3 contiguous flights at successive right angles, of varnished clear-grained oak, treads and risers, newel, balusters, and handrail, with stepped-up panel dado, dressed with corporated wax. Bathroom, hot and cold supply, clining and shower. Water closet on mezzanine, provided with opaque single-pane oblong window, tip-up seat, bracket lamp, brass T-rod and braces. Armrest, footstools, and artistic oleograph on inner face of door. Ditto, plain. Servants' apartments with separate sanitary and hygienic necessaries for cook, general, and between-maid. Salary rising by annual unearned increments of £2, with comprehensive fidelity insurance, annual bonus £1, and retiring allowance based on the 65 system after 30 years. Pantry, buttery, larder, refrigerator, out offices, coal and wood cellarage with wine bin, still and sparkling vintages, for distinguished guests, if entertained to dinner, evening dress, carbon monoxide gas supply throughout. What additional attractions might the grounds contain? As addenda, a tennis and 5 courts, a shrubbery, a glass summer house with tropical palms, equipped in the best botanical manner, a rockery with water spray, a beehive arranged on humane principles, oval flower beds, and rectangular grass plots set with eccentric ellipses of scarlet and chrome tulips, blue scillas, crocuses, polyanthus, sweet William, sweet pea, lily of the valley, bulbs obtainable from Sir James W. Mackey, Limited, wholesale, and retail seed and bulb merchants and nurserymen, agents for chemical manures, 23rd Sackville Street, Upper. An orchard, kitchen garden, and vinery protected against illegal trespassers by glass-top mural enclosures, a lumber shed with padlock for various inventoried implements, as eel traps, lobster pots, fishing rods, hatchet, steel yard, grindstone, clod crusher, swath turner, carriage sack, telescope ladder, tin-tooth rake, washing clogs, hay tedder, tumbling rake, bill hook, paint pot, brush, hoe, and so on. What improvements might be subsequently introduced? A rabbitry and fowl run, a dovecote, a botanical conservatory, 2 hammocks, ladies and gentlemen's, a sundial shade and sheltered by laburnum or lilac trees, an exotically harmonically accorded Japanese tinkle gate bell affixed to the left lateral gate post, a capacious water butt, a lawnmower with side delivery and grass box, a lawn sprinkler with hydraulic hose. What facilities of transit were desirable? When city-bound, frequent connection by train or tram from their respective intermediate station or terminal. When country-bound velocipedes, a chainless freewheel roadster cycle with side basket car attached, or drop conveyance, a donkey with wicker trap or smart phaeton with good working solidungular cob, roan gelding 14 hours. What might be the name of this irregible or erected residence? Bloom Cottage, St. Leopold's, Flowerville. Could Bloom of 7 Eccles Street foresee Bloom of Flowerville? In loose all-wheel garments, with Harris tweed cap, price 8 and 6, and useful garden boots with elastic gussets and watering can, planting aligned young fern trees, syringing, pruning, staking, sowing hayseed, trundling a weed-laden wheelbarrow without excessive fatigue at sunset amid the scent of new-mown hay, ameliorating the soil, multiplying wisdom, achieving longevity. What syllabus of intellectual pursuits was simultaneously possible? Snapshot photography, comparative study of religions, folklore relative to various amatory and superstitious practices, contemplation of the celestial constellations. What lighter recreations? Outdoor, garden and field work, cycling on level macadamized causeways, accents of moderately high hills, natation in secluded fresh water and unmolested river boating in secure, wary, and light curricle, with kedge anchor on reaches free from wares and rapids, period of estivation. Vespertinal perambulation or equestrian circumprocession, with inspection of sterile landscape and contrastingly agreeable cottages fires of smoking peat turves, period of hibernation. Indoor, discussion of tepid security of unsolved historical and criminal problems, lecture of unexpurgated exotic erotic masterpieces, house carpentry with toolbox containing hammer, all nails, screws, ten-tacks, gimlet, tweezers, bull-nose plane and turn screw. Might he become a gentleman farmer or produce field and livestock? Not impossibly, with 1 or 2 stripper cows, 1 pike of upland hay and requisite farming implements, e.g., an end-to-end churn, a turnip pulper, etc. What would be his civic functions and social status among the county families and landed gentry? Arranged successively in ascending powers of hierarchical order, that of gardener, groundsman, cultivator, breeder, and at the zenith of his career, resident magistrate or justice of the peace with a family crest and a coat of arms, an appropriate classical motto, Semper Paratus, duly recorded in the court directory. Bloom Leopold, P.M.P.P.C.K.P.L.L.D., honoris causa. Bloomville Dundrum. And mentioned in court in fashionable intelligence, Mr. and Miss Leopold Bloom have left Kingston for London. What course of action did he outline for himself in such capacity? A course that lay between undue clemency and excessive rigor, the dispensation of the heterogeneous society of arbitrary classes, incessantly rearranged in terms of greater and lesser social inequality, of unbiased, homogeneous, indisputable justice, tempered with mitigants of the highest possible latitude, but exactable to the uttermost farthing with confiscation of estate, real and personal, to the crown. Loyal to the highest constituted power in the land, actuated by an innate love of rectitude, his aims would be the strict maintenance of public order, the repression of many abuses, though not of all simultaneously, every measure of reform or retrenchment being a preliminary solution to be contained by fluxion in the final solution. The upholding of the letter of the law, common, statute, and law merchant against all traversers in coven, and trespassers acting in contravention of bylaws and regulations, all resuscitators by trespass and petty larceny of kindlings, of Venville rights, obsolete and destitute, all orotund instigators of international persecution, all perpetuators of international animosities, all menial molesters of domestic conviviality, all recalcitrant violators of domestic connubiality, prove that he had loved rectitude from his earliest youth. To Master Percy Apjohn in high school in 1880, he had divulged his belief in the tenets of the Irish Protestant Church, to which his father, Rudolf Virag, later Rudolf Bloom, had been converted to the Israelitic faith and communion in 1865 by the Society for Promoting Christianity Among the Jews, subsequently abjured by him in favor of Roman Catholicism at the epoch of and with a view to his matrimony in 1888. To Daniel McGrain and Francis Wade in 1882 during a juvenile friendship terminated by the premature immigration of the former, he had advocated during nocturnal perambulations the political theory of colonial, e.g., Canadian, expansion, and the evolutionary theories of Charles Darwin, expounded in The Descent of Man, The Origin of Species. In 1885, he had publicly expressed his adherence to the collective and national economic program advocated by James Fenton Layler, John Fisher Murray, John Mitchell, J.F.X. O'Brien, and others. The agrarian policy of Michael Davitt, the constitutional agitation of Charles Stewart Parnell, MP for Cork City, the program of peace, retrenchment, and reform of William Ewart Gladstone, MP for Midlothian NB, and, in support of his political convictions, had climbed up into a secure position amid the ramifications of a tree on Northumberland Road to see the entrance, 2nd of February 1888, into the capital of a demonstrative torchlight procession of 20,000 torchbearers, divided into 120 trade corporations, bearing 2,000 torches and escorts of the Marquess of Ripon and honest John Morley. How much and how did he propose to pay for this country residence? As per prospectus of the industrious foreign acclimatized, nationalized, friendly, state-aided building society, incorporated 1874, a maximum of £60 per annum, being 1/6 of an assured income, derived from gilt-edged securities, representing at 5% simple interest on capital of £1,200. Estimate of price at 20 years' purchase, of which to be paid on acquisition, and the balance in the form of annual rent, viz. £800 plus 2.5% interest on the same, repayable quarterly in equal annual installments until extinction by amortization of loan advanced for purchase within a period of 20 years, amounting to an annual rental of £64. Head rent included, the title deeds to remain in possession of the lender or lenders, with a saving clause envisaging forced sale, foreclosure, and mutual compensation in the event of protracted failure to pay the terms assigned. Otherwise, the message to become the absolute property of the tenant-occupier upon expiry of the period of years stipulated. What rapid but insecure means to opulence might facilitate immediate purchase? A private wireless telegraph which would transmit by dot and dash system the result of a national equine handicap, flat or steeplechase, of 1 or more miles in furlongs, won by an outsider at odds of 50 to 1 at 3 hours, 8 minutes p.m. at Ascot, Greenwich time. The message being received and available for betting purposes in Dublin at 2:59 p.m., Dunsink time. The unexpected discovery of an object of great monetary value, precious stone, valuable adhesive, or impressed postage stamps, 7 mauve, imperforate, Hamburg, 1866. 4 rose, blue paper, perforate, Great Britain, 1855. 1 franc, stone, official, rouletted, diagonal surcharge, Luxembourg, 1878. Antique dynastal ring, unique relic. In unusual repositories or by unusual means. From the air, dropped by an eagle in flight, by fire, amid the carbonized remains of the incendiated edifice, in the sea, amid flotsam, jetsam, lagon and derelict, on earth, in the gizzard of the comestible fowl. A Spanish prisoner's donation of a distant treasure of valuables, or specie, or bullion, lodged with a solvent banking corporation, lieu years previously at 5% compound interest, of the collective worth of £5 million STG, £5 million sterling. A contract with an inconsiderate contractee for the delivery of 32 consignments of some given commodity in consideration of cash payment on delivery, per delivery, at the initial rate of 1/4 D, to be increased constantly in the geometrical progression of 2. 1/4 D, 1/2, 1D, 2D, 4D, 8D, 1 silver 4D, 2 silver 8D, to 32 terms. A prepared scheme. Based on a study of the laws of probability to break the bank at Monte Carlo, a solution to the secular problem of the quadrature of the circle, government premium £1,000,000 sterling. Was vast wealth acquirable through industrial channels? The reclamation of dunams of waste arenary soil, proposed in the prospectus of Agendathnesheim, Bleibtreustraße, Berlin, West 15th, by the cultivation of orange plantations and melon fields and reforestation, the utilization of waste paper, fells of sewer rodents, human excrement possessing chemical properties, in view of the vast production of the first, vast number of the second, and immense quantity of the third, every normal human being of average vitality and appetite producing annually, cancelling by products of water, a sum total of 80 pounds, mixed animal and vegetable diet, to be multiplied by 4,386,035, the total population of Ireland according to census returns of 1901. Were there schemes of wider scope? A scheme to be formulated and submitted for approval to the harbour commissioners for the exploitation of white coal, hydraulic power, obtained by hydroelectric plants at the peak of tide at Dublin Bar, or at the head of water at Pulafuka, or Power Skirt, or catchment basins of main streams for the economic production of 500,000 WHP of electricity. A scheme to enclose the peninsula delta of the North Bull at Dollymount and erect on the space of the foreland, used for golf links and rifle ranges, an asphalted esplanade with casinos, booths, shooting galleries, hotels, boarding houses, reading rooms, establishments for mixed bathing. A scheme for the use of dog vans and goat vans for the delivery of early morning milk. A scheme for the development of Irish tourist traffic in and around Dublin by means of petrol-propelled riverboats, plying in the fluvial fairway between Island Bridge and Ringsend, charabancs, narrow-gauge local railways, and pleasure steamers for coastwise navigation. 10 per person per day, guide being trilingual included. A scheme for the repristination of passengers and goods traffic over Irish waterways, when freed from weed beds. A scheme to connect the tram line, the cattle market, North Circular Road and Prussia Street, with the quays, Sheriff Street, Lower and East Wall, parallel with the Link Line Railway laid, in conjunction with the Great Southern and Western Railway Line, between the Cattle Park, Liffey Junction, and terminus of Midland, Great Western Railway, 43 to 45 North Wall, in proximity to the terminal stations or Dublin branches of Great Central Railway, Midland Railway of England, City of Dublin Steam Packet Company, Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Company, Dublin and Glasgow Steam Packet Company, Glasgow, Dublin and Londonderry Steam Packet Company, Laird Line, British and Irish Steam Packet Company, Dublin and Morecambe Steamers, London and Northwestern Railway Company, Dublin Port and Docks Board Landing Sheds, and transit sheds of Palgrave, Murphy and Company, steamship owners, agents for steamers from Mediterranean, Spain, Portugal, France, Belgium, and Holland, and for Liverpool Underwriters Association, the cost of acquired rolling stock for animal transport, and of additional mileage operated by the Dublin United Tramways Company, limited to be covered by grazer's fee. Positing what protasis would the contraction for such several schemes become a natural and necessary apodosis? Given a guarantee equal to the sum sought, the support by deed of gift and transfer vouchers during donor's lifetime, or by bequest after donor's painless extinction, of eminent financiers, Blumpasha, Rothschild Guggenheim, Hirsch, Montefiore, Morgan, Rockefeller, possessing fortunes in 6 figures, amassed during a successful life, and joining capital with opportunity, the thing required was done. What eventuality would render him independent of such wealth? The independent discovery of a gold seam of inexhaustible ore. For what reason did he meditate on schemes so difficult of realization? It was one of his axioms that similar meditations, or the automatic relation to himself of a narrative concerning himself, or tranquil recollection of the past when practiced habitually before retiring for the night, alleviated fatigue and produced as a result sound repose and renovated vitality. His justifications? As a physicist, he had learned that of the 70 years of complete human life, at least 2/7 of 20 years are passed in sleep. As a philosopher, he knew that the termination of any allotted life, only an infinitesimal part of any person's desires has been realized. As a physiologist, he believed in the artificial placation of malignant agencies chiefly operative during somnolence. What did he fear? The committal of homicide or suicide during sleep by an aberration of the light of reason, the incommensurable categorical intelligence situated in the cerebral convolutions. What were habitually his final meditations? Of someone's sole unique advertisement to cause passers to stop and wonder, a poster novelty, with all extraneous accretions excluded, reduced to its simplest and most efficient terms, not exceeding the span of casual vision, and congruous with the velocity of modern life. What did the first drawer, unlocked, contain? A Veras Foster's handwriting copybook, property of Millicent Bloom, certain pages of which bore diagram markings, marked Papley, which showed a large globular head with 5 hairs erect, 2 eyes in profile, the trunk full front with 3 large buttons, 1 triangular foot, 2 fading photographs of Queen Alexandra of England and of Maud Branscombe, actress and professional beauty. A Yuletide card bearing on it a pictorial representation of a parasitic plant, the legend Mizpah, the date Xmas 1892, the name of the senders from Mr. and Miss M. Comerford, the versicle. May this Yuletide bring to thee joy and peace and welcome glee. A butt of red partly liquefied sealing wax obtained from the stores department of Messrs. Helly's, Ltd., 89, 90, and 91 Dame Street. A box containing the remainder of a gross of gilt J. Pinnubs, obtained from same department of same firm. An old sandglass which rolled containing sandwich rolled. A sealed prophecy, never unsealed, written by Leopold Bloom in 1886 concerning the consequences of the passing into law of William Ewart Gladstone's Home Rule Bill of 1886, never passed into law. A bazaar ticket, number 2004 of S. Kevin's Charity Fair, price 60, 100 prizes. An infantile epistle, dated Smallham Monday, reading, capital P, Popley, comma, capital H, how are you note of interrogation, capital I am very well, full stop, new paragraph, signature with flourishes, capital M, Millie, no stop. A cameo brooch, property of Ellen Bloom, born Higgins, deceased. A cameo scarf pin, property of Rudolph Bloom, born Virag, deceased. 3 typewritten letters, addressee Henry Flower, C.O., P.O., Westland Row. Addresser Martha Clifford, C.O., P.O., Dolphin's Barn. The transliterated name and address of the addresser of the 3 letters in reversed alphabetic, boustrophedonic, punctuated quadrilinear cryptogram, vowels suppressed, N-I-G-S, W-I-U-U, O-X, W, O-K-S, M-H-Y-I-M. A press cutting from an English weekly periodical Modern Society, subject corporal chastisement in girls' schools. A pink ribbon which had festooned an Easter egg in the year 1899. 2 partly uncoiled rubber preservatives with reserve pockets, purchased by post from Box 32 P.O., Charing Cross, London, W.C. 1 pack of 1 dozen cream-laid envelopes and faint-ruled notepaper, watermarked, now reduced by 3. Some assorted Austrian-Hungarian coins, 2 coupons of the Royal and Privileged Hungarian Lottery, a low-power magnifying glass, 2 erotic photo cards showing a buccal coition between nude señorita, rear presentation, superior position, and nude torero, fore presentation, inferior position. B. Anal violation by male religious, fully clothed, eyes abject, of female religious, partly closed, eye direct, purchased by post from Box 32 P.O., Charing Cross, London, W.C. A press cutting of a recipe for renovation of old tan boots, an ID adhesive stamp, lavender, of the reign of Queen Victoria. A chart of the measurements of Leopold Bloom compiled before, during, and after 2 months' consecutive use of Sandow Whiteley's pulley exerciser. Men's 15, athletes 20. Viz. Chest 28 and 29.5 inches, biceps 9 inches and 10. Forearm 8.5 inches and 9 inches. Thigh 10 inches and 12 inches. Calf 11 inches and 12 inches. One prospectus of The Wonder Worker, the world's greatest remedy for rectal complaints, direct from Wonder Worker, Coventry House, South Place, London, EC. Addressed, erroneously, to Mrs. L. Bloom, with brief accompanying note commencing erroneously, Dear Madame. Quote the textual terms in which the prospectus claimed advantages for this thaumaturgic remedy. It heals and soothes while you sleep, in case of trouble and breaking wind, assists nature in the most formidable way, ensuring instant relief in discharges of gas, keeping parts clean and free natural action, an initial outlay of 7/6 making a new man of you, and life worth living. Ladies find Wonder Worker especially useful, a pleasant surprise when they note delightful result, like a cool drink of fresh spring water on a sultry summer's day. Remember it to your lady and gentlemen friends, lasts a lifetime. Insert long round in, Wonder Worker. Were there testimonials? Numerous, from clergyman, British naval officer, well-known author, city man, hospital nurse, lady, mother of 5, absent-minded beggar. How did absent-minded beggar's concluding testimonial conclude? What a pity the government did not supply our men with Wonder Workers during the South African campaign. What a relief it would have been. What object did Bloom add to his collection of objects? A 4th typewritten letter received by Henry Flower, let HF be LB, from Martha Clifford, find MC. What pleasant reflection accompanied this action? The reflection that, apart from the letter in question, his magnetic face, form, and address had been favorably received during the course of the preceding day by a wife, Miss Josephine Breen, born Josie Powell, a nurse, Miss Callan, Christian name unknown, a maid, Gertrude, Gertie, family name unknown. What possibility suggested itself? The possibility of exercising virile power fascination, and in the not immediate future, after an expensive repast in a private apartment in the company of an elegant courtesan, of corporal beauty, moderately mercenary, variously instructed, a lady by origin. And what did the second drawer contain? Documents, the birth certificate of Leopold Paula Bloom, an endowment assurance policy of £500 in the Scottish Widows Assurance Society, intestated Millicent Millie Bloom, coming into force at 25 years as without profit policy of £430, 462, 10 and 0, and £500 at 60 years or death, 65 years or death and death, respectively, or with profit policy, paid up of £299, 10 and 0, together with cash payment of £133, 10 and 0 at option. A bank pass note issued by the Ulster Bank, College Green Branch, showing statement of AC for half year, ending 31st of December 1903. Balance in depositor's favor, 18, 14, and 6. £18, 14 shillings, and 6 pence sterling. Net personality, certificate of possession of £900. Canadian 4%, inscribed. Government stock, free of stamp duty. Dockets of the Catholic cemeteries, Glasnevin Committee. Relative to a grave plot purchased, a local press cutting concerning change of name by deed poll. Quote the textual terms of this notice. I, Rudolf Virag, now resident at number 52 Clanbrassil Street, Dublin, formerly of Szombathely in the Kingdom of Hungary, hereby give notice that I have resumed and intend henceforth upon all occasion and at all times to be known by the name of Rudolf Bloom. What other objects relative to Rudolf Bloom, born Virag, were in the second drawer? An indistinctive daguerreotype of Rudolf Virag and his father,